In this episode, how to get your first account. I'm going to be speaking to you about banking and cover a few points. So thank you for joining me in this episode. We're going to be looking at all the essential things that can help you. Let's have a quick look at what we're going to cover so you know what to expect. So in banking, you're going to get a few options, and these are going to be how to get your first bank account. We're on season 14, episode 3. So thank you for joining me. Why you should get a bank account. That's quite important. We need to know that. We'll have a look at that. Understanding types of bank accounts, documentation you require to open a bank account, what you expect for the application process, understanding the fees and charges if there are any, building credit history, and online and mobile banking. So all these little things are going to be helpful if you're thinking about getting your bank account set up. So don't worry, this is a list that I will cover with you, and if you haven't got a pen, all of this is going to be available for you in the resources section of this episode, and you can check that at zulftalks.com, and you can basically get just that list, so it'll help you, so you don't have to write all of these down, and you can download this little presentation I've got today, which I'm going to go through, and you can actually see the list of the information as well. So if this helps you, but without any further ado, let's continue and get on to the first section, which is going to be an important section, and that is why get a bank account. That's quite important. I think getting a bank account is quite essential in this day and age. Everything is digital, so you already have a need for a bank account. The reason for that is, say for example you've started working and you're getting a bit of money coming in. Where does that money go? You can take it as cash if you want, but having cash these days, people don't like to have cash around because it just sits around. There's no point of having cash sitting around, so you'd rather have it in a bank account because there will be some benefits going forward of having money in a bank account. We're going to see what the benefits are of that, so stay tuned for that. But let's see now. That's your main why. Having your money in one place, and it's safe, it's secure, you can access it easily. These are things you need to consider for your bank account. And when you want to, can that money, while it's sitting there, make you more money? Yeah, that's the thing. We'll talk about that. So that's why you need to get a bank account. Understanding the types of bank accounts out there. So there are loads of accounts out there. We talked about this in our last episode, which is episode 2 and episode 1 of this season 14, where I basically spoke about banking. This is going to be for that person that wants an account and they're not too sure. Like, you know, when I was young, I left school, left college. I didn't really know anything about bank accounts. So I was thinking, why do I need a bank account? Why is it so hard to set up? These days it's a lot more easier to set up, and you can go through the process, which we'll talk about today. But understanding the types of accounts is important because there are some accounts out there which are free. There's some accounts out there which charge you money. There's some accounts that offer you benefits, and if you're new, you may not get accepted for accounts. So you might go through an application and they might turn around and say to you, no, we've rejected it because of your credit history. What does that even mean? So we're going to even cover that. So credit history is a main thing that you want to think about, especially if you're building up and you're new to finance and you're doing a bank account. Because what you'll find is when they say to you, you don't have credit history, what does that mean? That's just saying that you haven't got enough background for us to borrow you money. It's like walking into a place and you don't know anybody there. They're not going to trust you until they get to know you, understand what you do, what your ethics are, how you like to do things. That's basically a layman's explanation of credit reports, credit history. So understanding type of bank accounts is very important. So that's be something to consider. Documentation required. So let's picture the scenario. You're going to be going into a bank, or you might do this online actually, and you're applying for a bank account. You're going to say, I need to apply for a bank account. So you go online, you go through an application. The application is going to be name, address, what do you do, how many hours do you work, if you work, do you have any other accounts with us, and that kind of nature. So there'll be different sections. There'll be like your information about you, there'll be finance information, there'll be things about how much money do you want to borrow, overdrafts. Do you need an overdraft? An overdraft is part of a bank account where if you don't have any money in there, you can borrow some money from the bank basically, and then you have to pay that back. It's not the best way to borrow. In later episodes, we will be discussing better ways of borrowing, but the main documentation you're going to need, the basic one to start off with, an ID. So if you're new, you can have a driving license. If you have a passport, that'd be great. Some type of ID for identification, for like the ID card for a country. If you use like there's different types that people use. The second one would be address. You need something with your address on, and it's quite important to have that because they need to know where you live. And if you have a bill in your name, that would be helpful. If you have letters in your name, if you are old enough and you vote, you can register online for the voting system, and that can act like a bit of a proof that you live there, you reside there, because when they do a search for you, when they make their account, they will check that electoral roll, they call it, to make sure you're registered to vote. It's like a historic thing, but people still use it to confirm you live there, you have the right to vote. It just gives you an extra bit of documentation basically. In addition to that, if you have anything with your wage slips, if you're getting money from an employer, if you have a letter from an employer, these kind of things can help. So all of these are documentations you can require. They may ask you for more information about if you have any borrowing at the moment, if you have like another statement from another bank, if you have any credit, those types of things are documents that would be essential. So those two will be essential. So your address and your ID, for picture ID, that's going to be really important. That's the document section of it. The application process. So what actually happens, you're going to fill out the application. It'll say to you, okay, we've received your information. This is if you're doing it online. And now we're going to think about giving you a bank account. So as soon as you apply online, they're going to say your bank is looking at your information. It can take up to a week, 2 weeks. For some of the slower banks, the banks that are like the old school high street branches like NatWest, Santander, Barclays, they are making it more streamlined now. They're making it faster. They're doing things like when you do your application process, you can take a video of yourself saying, hello, this is me, and they ask you to say a line and do face verification. So some bank accounts offer that because you can, Starling for example, they do that, so you don't have to go into the branch and they'll do a search for you. However, they will ask for documents if you're totally new. So you'll have to take photographs of them and send them via the chat or via the feature online. Just be careful how you send the documents and do it in a safe manner and keep them safe, because obviously in this day and age, it's very important to keep your personal data safe as possible and just limit it to the people that need it for example, opening an account. So the application process will look like that to start off with. You'll do your application yourself. They'll come back with a decision saying, we're looking at it. They'll take a week, up to a week, and then they'll search and find out if you're worthy of having an account. Some branches will say to you, okay, now we've done it. Can you come into the branch and show us your ID? And we'll have a face-to-face appointment. So that's part of the application process as well. So this hopefully helps you, especially if you're new and you've not had a bank account before. Expect to have this process going on. So it's nice to see this, just so you know what's going on. Understanding fees and charges. In most scenarios, sometimes when you create a bank account, especially if you're going into the store, they will try and, they're salespeople at the end of the day. A bank is a sales company. They're trying to sell you a bank account and make money from you. If you think of it like that, you'll do well in life. So the reason we're saying that is because when you first go in, this happened to me originally when I went to the bank. They tried to give me an account and said, oh, did you know with this account you can get home insurance? I'm like, oh wow, I don't have a home. And then they said, oh, we do car insurance cover, or we do special travel insurance cover. So if you take out this bank account, we're going to give you extra protection. I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds great. They'll go through the application, do it, and then say, oh yeah, okay, so this account will cost you £3 a month or $3 every month because we're giving you these extra benefits. And then that's where there's fees and charges. Firstly, the fee for the account. You don't have to have that account. They just sold that account to you because you went in there, you didn't know what you were doing. But hopefully, because you're watching this, now you know what can happen in real life scenarios. Everybody's trying to sell you something. Just keep that in mind, and that would help you. So if you're working through this process and you understand that you want a simple account, you just want to put money in there, you can say to them when they give you this, say, no, I'd just like a simple account, please. I just need it for my money to go into. Then you won't have to pay any money each month. And the charges come into it. Some bank accounts will charge you. So where this gets interesting is if I open up a bank account with NatWest and I say I want a simple account, I don't want an overdraft, which basically means I don't want to borrow money from my account if I don't have money there, then there won't be any charges because I will never borrow any money. However, if you create money and you have cash and you want to put it into your bank account, some banks charge you for that. So for example, I have a Starling bank account, and when I get paid invoices and people give me cash for like services, if I put that money into Starling as cash, I have to go to the post office, because Starling uses post office as their branch where you can put money in. I put the money into my account, but then post office will charge you £3 for putting that money in, because I'm using the post office to put money into my bank account. Does that make sense? So that classes as a charge. That's an example of one charge. There are other types of charges out there which you can consider if you have an overdraft. So let me talk a bit about an overdraft. You open up a bank account, they say to you, okay, you've got a £400 overdraft limit, which means even if you don't have money in your account, you can borrow money. It's a type of borrowing, a bit of credit. Credit basically means money you're taking which you don't already have, or money you're borrowing from somebody. There's different ways of saying this. And if you borrow money from that overdraft, they will charge you until you pay it back. So that can be on a daily rate, it can be on a monthly rate, it can be a fixed amount. There's different types of charges out there. So say for example, I borrowed £100 and it took me 3 weeks to pay it back. It might be that in that account they'll charge me like 30 pence or 40 pence every day until I pay it back. And then if you go over your £400 limit, if you borrow £500, you'll have an over limit charge and a penalty charge because you took more money than you had. So they'll charge you like a £20 limit, over limit fee, because you've gone over the allocated limit, and then they'll charge you interest as well. So as long as you know this, you can plan for it. Just if you don't have an overdraft, and if I'm of the mindset, if I don't have money, I won't spend the money. That's my mindset. If you're able to adhere to this similar thing, especially if you're young and you're getting into this idea, and only spend money you've got and you've actually earned, then you should be okay. There will be occasions where you need to borrow money where you don't have it, but there's other ways of doing that, which I'll speak about in later episodes. So stay tuned for ways of borrowing and what's a good way of borrowing, because overdraft is not a long-term way of borrowing. Maybe for a week or two you can get away with it, but just consider, is it worth the hassle? What else have we got in this episode? So thank you for tuning in today. We are on the Zulf Talks podcast, and today we're looking at working for yourself. Next one I've got is building credit history. You know what that's about? Credit history is an interesting topic because you want to create an account. Say for example, during this process they said to you, you don't have good credit history. If you're totally new, like I mentioned, if you walk into a room of people, nobody knows you, you have to build up trust. So if you use that example, if I'm going to the bank, they want to know, do I have other bank accounts? Do I have other money that I can use to say, you know what, I've already got a bank account. I can manage my money myself. I know how to look after money. I know how to pay it back. You have a better chance of getting credit cards, loans, bank accounts with overdrafts. That makes sense? So think of it like you're building up your history. Like on social media, if you create a channel, you slowly build content up and people start knowing you for that type of content and they trust what you say. Same thing with the bank. They need to make sure they can give you money and you can pay it back. Hopefully that makes sense. And there's a whole system about this. I'll talk in later episodes about credit history and how you can check what your credit history is for free online. So I might do a dedicated episode about that. Let me know if you want to hear about that. And of course, online and mobile banking is a very important factor these days because everybody's online now. And you want to use your phone to check your money. You want to make a payment to a friend, send money, and these types of things are available in most banking applications. So you can send some money to a friend, for example. So normally this process needs you to sign up. So when you create your account, if you applied online, you should already be signed up. If you went into a store, if a branch, NatWest, or any of the banks. I keep saying NatWest because I used to work for NatWest a long time ago and I know a bit more about that. But yeah, if you go into a bank and apply, you can create an online login. They give you special login codes. You can go into the computer. You can log in onto a computer or a PC. You see more options. You can log in on your phone via an app. You may not see as many options. So some things like if you want to add a person you want to send money to, you can sometimes do it on your phone, but it might ask you for some extra checks and then you have to go onto the website. So as long as you know the steps, that's like once you set your account up. But these are things that are available online and on mobile banking. What can you do with online and mobile banking? If you go into a shop, you can use your phone and turn on your NFC. It's like a type of payment method. Go to your banking app, tap it and pay for things using your bank account directly. So you don't even have to have a card anymore these days. So it's quite handy to have online banking. You can see when you get paid, you can see statements, you can download transactions. So like for example, if I had a really busy month and I spend lots of money, I can go into this month and see, oh yeah, I spent it on this, Yeah, that makes sense. That's why I've spent 500, 600 pounds when I should have only spent 100 when you get into the shopping spree. But this helps you keep an eye on it and see what's being spent. So online and mobile banking is quite an important one. And you can also make payments to your bills and things like that. Again, all of this information is available on my podcast episodes as well as show notes on zulftalks.com. You'll basically see this page. There's the first link there is show resources. Click on that, put in your email, and I'll send you the link to actually see this presentation so you can actually see everything I'm talking about today. That would help you. So let me just summarize what we talked about today so we understand where we are. So how to get your first bank account. You should get a bank account. It's very important. You want to understand the types of bank accounts which we discussed today. The documentation required, we talked about the main IDs are your name and your ID for facial ID, as in like a passport, driving license, and a address ID with a bill or a letter from employer or wage slips, that kind of thing. The application process we talked about and covered what and how you apply. You can apply online, you can apply via a store, a bank. Understanding fees and charges, so knowing what things will cost you when you set up a bank account, if they cost you anything. Building credit history, we briefly touched on that, but we'll go into it in more detail, as well as online and mobile banking options. Again, everything we talked about today is going to be something that will be handy for you, especially if you're in this era now, because we need to. This episode we covered this as option, but it will be interesting for you to check out this other video which you will actually find interesting, and that video is going to be aimed about how savings accounts work. You have a bank account, you've set up a bank account. Did you know having money in your bank account may not be the best place to put it? Have another account next to your bank account which is called a savings account. How will that help you? Why is that good? You'll earn some money. Check out this video and I explain that and let you know how and why you should do that.
Working for yourself, I know you love it. Working for yourself, 'cause I love it too. Working for yourself, Zulf talks about it, making it easy for you. Working for yourself, go be your own boss. Working for yourself, Zulf will help you along. Working for yourself, powered by trusted creators, zulftalks.com.